Well, I know this is a different type of video from me. It's not the in-depth analytical tactical analysis. We are going to do some tactical analysis, but I thought I just had to get an instant reaction out to you guys after that. Arsenal 3, Real Madrid 0. First leg of the Champions League quarterfinals. Nothing's done, of course, but what a moment and what a way to be proud, I think, as an Arsenal fan. We have, irrespective of what goes on and happens in the tie and in the remaining competition, we have all witnessed, we've experienced, we've been part of today, genuinely a moment of history in Arsenal Football Club. Everything aligned. The fans, the poise, the atmosphere, on the pitch too. It was worth it. Let's get into the game. Instant reaction, breakdown and analysis. I can't contain my smile. I'm sorry, Real Madrid fans. I know there are a lot of you in my tactical preview comments, but let's get into it. Arsenal started in a slightly tweaked shape to normal. It was a 3-2-3-2 setup in settled play, transitioning from their 4-3-3 in deep build-up. And basically, the emphasis from Arsenal was on Myles obviously tucking in from left back into the pivot, but he was playing around and shifting with his height, sometimes receiving lowest in that almost in between the centre-back's role, collecting in the first line, sometimes shifting a bit higher and sitting further up on top of Partey to receive those balls from Saliba, but mostly David Raya, in between that first line of Real Madrid press. We highlighted in the preview that can be they can have a lack of compactness, Real Madrid, in that zone with Vini and Mbappe at the top. And we stacked 3 players in between the lines in this 3-2-3 shape with Odegaard, Merino and Rice moving from right to left in that between the lines zone. And we could only do this with Saka and Martinelli as those high and wide wingers, able to stretch and test that back line, trying to get 1v1s in behind. But back to that between the line 3 of Odegaard, Merino and Rice. The 2-8s, Odegaard and Merino, could shuttle wide and shift outside of the Real Madrid 4-4-2 block into those sort of wide, almost creating that 3-3 base structure. And they often picked the ball up, and particularly Declan Rice gave us those big legs in the carry. It's also important to emphasize with Declan Rice, not just those legs transitioning us into the final third, but the beyond that, in the final third, stretching dynamically, bursting high off Merino's lower counter movements, and Myles Lewis Skelly, who was that deep progressive force for Arsenal the whole game at just 18, offering us that thrust with those punchy passes through the lines that we saw to Declan Rice so often, and also that carrying range, occasionally rotating with Rice and receiving in those higher pockets to give some extra snap. And that left-hand side was so dynamic, I think so ruthless. And let's talk about, we spoke about Madrid only needing a flash, only needing a moment in the whole of this prelude. And it was Declan Rice from 2 moments, 2 free kicks, who provided Arsenal for that. I couldn't believe what I was watching. I mean, I was active on Twitter analysing the game, but I couldn't contain myself. Going into the game, I think there were 6 or 7 players on that pitch across both teams who were genuinely unstoppable in attack in some way, in possession in some way, shape or form. And 3 of those players play for Arsenal. Bukayo, Saka, inevitable as always, and just generating chances and moments and gravity in the final third. Declan Rice is another, and Myles Lewis Skelly is that final one, each in their different ways. But for Declan Rice, those 2 moments, you know, I've been screaming about him becoming that free kick taker for us for a while, but he just shows, I've been calling for him to be this global guy for us, for this universal presence and influence on the pitch. And wow, are we showing that now? We have to find the role to give him maximum defensive coverage, maximum license in the final third, maximum ball striking, maximum leadership, maximize his brain. That's what we're starting to do, and you can see that with the gravitas he carries in the box moment as well. He almost scored a header in the first half, and overall, I cannot wipe the smile off my face, guys. Let's go into a little bit more detail now and talk about Real Madrid. As I was talking about in the preview, they set up as normal in sort of that base 4-2-4 template with the pivots, Camavinga and Modric playing with their spacing, Camavinga stacking on top of Modric, who made lots of swings into the back line, normally between the centre-backs for Real Madrid. And on top of that, it was Mbappe once more and Bellingham, who were the glue sort of in that final third. Sorry, my fingers are in the way there. My arm's getting tired holding this camera up. And Mbappe was looking to link and bring the wide touchline wingers into play. And we said, didn't we, how important the fullback selection for Arsenal were going to be. We needed to go aggressive from the Real Madrid, deep possession, goal kicks, that high man-to-man press, disrupting how they can play dangerous long balls and generate transition moments, manufacturing where we want those balls to drop were key, and using that press as our own playmakers. Exactly what we did. We needed Jurriën Timber's snappiness up against Vinny Jr., getting tight to him, not allowing that little bit of separation, which is all Vinicius needs to link with Mbappe and overload with Bellingham and then spring in behind. Timber was perfect today, as was Myles Lewis Skelly. Our wingers helped out diligently, as we know they would, in Saka and Martinelli, making sure our fullbacks weren't doubled up on. And I think that's the big difference. If you look at, for example, Atletico Madrid in the... Oh, sorry, don't know what's happened there. Yep, there we go. If you look at our wingers tracking back in the difference to Atletico Madrid in the round of 16 against Real Madrid, their wingers weren't completely as diligent, and we're talking about those switches in the preview, weren't we? Those speeds for Real Madrid, and how they love to sort of be relentless in moving the ball from one side of the pitch to another, allowing Valverde to quarterback from a little bit more central and shallower. But we didn't allow that. We were compact, shuttling side to side in our block, and the only real joy, of course, in those moments stretching in behind for Real Madrid. It can just happen in a second, and we should by no means assume that this tie is completely over. And I want to do a bit more tactical stuff, of course, but let's just circle back round. And what a monumental moment, because it's important. I just want to highlight this as a fan before I put the tinted glasses and the blazer back on and be all tactical head again. What a moment this is. We've welcomed, some would call them inevitable, unstoppable, the 14-time holders to the Emirates, and we've put ourselves not just on the map, we were on the map already, but we've made people aware. If they were kidding themselves before, this is a team who are so close to greatness. And, I feel very privileged to be able to speak about that on a platform with you guys. And thank you so much for trusting in me as a voice, for watching this video. And as always, I'll be in the comments down below. I'll be debating and conversing with you whichever way you want. But it was great to see, I think, Arsenal and Arteta look at some of those weaknesses that I commented on in terms of especially Madrid's out of possession structure. We saw, again, circling back round to how Declan Rice found some space bursting off the shoulder, those runs from deep we highlighted in those sort of channels, how Madrid out of possession, when they have to start tracking runners over bigger distances, then they can really struggle, especially those runs from deep. We thought there was a chance of those coming from fullback, but most importantly for Arsenal, that dynamism can come from that inside left channel from our left interior. And with Merino in the false nine instead of Trossard, Rice was given that hybrid up and down role that only really Declan Rice can do. Out of possession for Arsenal's point of view, again, that was the aim, was that aggressive initial man-to-man press before working diligently back to set up in our block and eliminate that space that Madrid love to work in, how sharp they like to be with their overloads, their quick sort of relational combination, dynamic play between others. But in that man-to-man press, Rice was following Modric diligently, Odegaard on Camavinga, and then pressing through to press Rudiger left centre-back, with Partey stepping up and man-marking Jude Bellingham. We pointed out that potential mismatch. But Partey, as he has been for a while now, has once again been on it out of possession. And that 1v1 battle, there were duels all over the pitch. Those key 1v1 matchups that Partey came out on top on against Jude Bellingham. He was tight and diligent to him the whole time, and the team, as always, were so conditioned. I think Mbappe tried with Bellingham to overload that right-hand side where Kylian was in that inside right channel a lot of the time, especially in the first half. But again, with Declan Rice in and around those zones, it's always going to be so difficult to penetrate. I'm going to try and get some more detailed analysis out for you guys, but this was my initial thoughts, talking about those tweaks in possession for Arsenal, how they hurt Madrid in those type of ways that we spoke about, how Madrid's template wasn't allowed to really blossom by an Arsenal team who have made history tonight. I cannot wipe the smile off my face, I will say again. Thank you so much for tuning in to this instant tactical analysis. I will catch you guys very soon. Come on, you Gunners.